Yeah, and so you've spent 24 years now at Iowa, and you've got
Hmm.
to witness some great seasons, some great players. But looking back on it from Hayden Fry to Kirk Ferentz to the Rose Bowl season, what have been some of your favorite moments or seasons, or even some of your calls that you've gotten to witness, or for calls
Yeah,
there?
it's hard to narrow it down to one or two. When I get asked that question, I do a lot in classrooms. I give them a couple of examples because you mentioned Hayden Fry to Kirk Ferentz, Dr. Tom Davis to Steve Alford. Even Todd Licklider. That was a short-lived career for Todd. To Fran McCaffrey. I've had great moments with all those coaches. Uh, Tom Davis. I'll start with basketball. We went to Kansas. Fabled Fog Allen Fieldhouse at KU, and Roy Williams, who's now at North Carolina, was the head coach at Kansas. And Dr. Tom had a good team, really good team. Jess Settles and Dean Oliver and Kent McCausland. We had great three-point shooters. We're down 18 to start the second half. And Kent McCausland reined in like back-to-back-to-back three-point goals.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've cut the lead in half, and Kansas is going, oh, this isn't supposed to be happening. And then Dean Oliver, the great little point guard who's on the coaching staff at Wisconsin now, made some plays, stole the ball. And anyway, every Jess Settles had a few dunks. Everybody's contributing, and the Hawks ultimately won that game by 3 or 4 points. That ended a Kansas 68-game home win streak.
Wow.
Yeah, because as you know, that Kansas doesn't lose
Yeah.
very often at home. Now they're struggling this year, but in 1998 they had won 68 straight. And then fast forward to the end of the season. This was Tom Davis last year. He had been told that he would not be retained, and that really upset a lot of people in the state because Tom Davis was winning 20 games a year. He was going to the tournament every year, but Steve Alford was the new darling of college coaches. Everybody wanted to hire Steve. At least everybody's looking for a head coach. And so
Mm-hmm.
Bowlesby jumped the gun and hired him, and they had an agreement that they wouldn't announce it till after the season. And Steve was doing a great job at Southwest Missouri State. But fast forward, Tom Davis took that team to the Sweet 16, and we lost our best inside player with a broken wrist late in the year. His name was Sam Oakey. And Jess Settles to this day swears that Iowa would have won the national championship had they had Sam Oakey because they got out rebounded by UConn, Connecticut, who ultimately won the national championship. We were in Phoenix at the Sweet 16, and Iowa lost by, I think, 5 or 6. But Connecticut had Rip Hamilton, Khalid El Amin. I mean, they had a phenomenal team. But they were more athletic and smaller, and we were missing our best big guy. No excuses, but so those were a couple of my favorite basketball memories, and there have been others. Obviously, this year has been special with Fran McCaffrey, and I've never been around covered a player like Luka Garza. I mean, he is just he's just amazing because to quote Archie Miller, the coach at Indiana, he never stops. He's always moving. Arms are going. He's so hard to guard that he'll split through double teams because when he catches the ball, he's already turning to the basket.
Yeah.
And this guy makes more great catches of bad passes than anybody I've ever seen. And he caught one the other night against Indiana where he literally, he's under the basket and it was way wide to his right. He reaches out with his left hand while he's warding off the defender. Patty caked it up in the air, grabbed it, and all in one motion went up and put it in. Now that's a turnover by any other team because the big guy is not going to be able to. He's got such great body control. So those are a couple of basketball examples in terms of a game or games. The Kansas 68-game winning streak ended by your Iowa Hawkeyes. Football, gosh, again, there's so many. That 12-0 season was so special. Hammering Nebraska at Nebraska to
So always fun to beat the Cornhuskers.
oh man, to cinch the 12-0 season. And it
Yes.
was icy and cold, and The Huskers didn't want to be there in the end, and Iowa just ran the ball right down their throat. I mean, when Iowa's running the football, that is a real thing of joy. And with Tyler Goodson, we've got a great tailback going forward. And, it's going to be a fun couple of years with him at running back. But Spencer Petras is only going to get better. I mean, he's got a cannon for an arm, and he got better as this season went on. But with the COVID, I mean, the guys were so robbed of any cohesive chemistry to not only get to know each other, and they hung out with each other certainly all season long, but to get to 6-2 after losing their first two games,
yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, we'd have mauled Michigan and Missouri. We'd have buried both of them because of our defense. Our defense was playing so well, and Davion Nixon was like a caged tiger. I mean, he was ready to go rip some helmets off. And all due respect to Michigan and Missouri, in my view, they didn't have a shot at Iowa. So it's great momentum to build off coming into this year. But I'd have to put that 2015 season in there as a great moment. I mean, every victory, 12-0, and then the heartbreaking loss against Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
For Michigan State, I mean, you got to give them credit. They put together a 19-play drive, as I remember, and I think they converted 3 fourth downs.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the last play where the guy's reaching out for the goal line, and Bo Bauer comes flying by, and the helmet almost hit the football right at the goal line, which would have knocked it loose. And but I'm begging here. Could we have jumped on the fumble? Who knows? But that was a memorable year. I would say that if I were to pick out a moment, I'm trying to think. There's 1 or 2 kicks where Iowa won on the last play of the game. Certainly Keith Duncan's kick to beat Michigan a couple of years ago, or was that Miguel Racinas? I think it was Keith Duncan.
Yeah.
And then 10, 12 years ago, Danny Murray he's a soccer kicker from Iowa City, kicked a field goal to beat Penn State on the last play of the game. Penn State came in ranked 3rd. They were 9-0. Certainly the Ohio State game that you referenced, the Amani Hooker pick 6 on the first play of the game. That's one that I'll take to my grave. So there's a number of plays. I'd have to go back and think. So many great teams. Everybody wants to point to the Capital One Bowl, Drew Tate to Warren Holloway to end the game. That was. I fumbled all over that play. I mean, I was so stunned that we weren't calling timeout, and all we needed was a field goal. We didn't need a touchdown because we're down 2 points. But Drew Tate knew exactly what he was doing. He looked the coverage off here with a pump fake. He knew he had a blitz coming, and Holloway, Warren was going to be uncovered, and he just pop-flied it down the seam, and Eddie Hinkle gave him a great block down near the goal line, and that was an incredible moment. That certainly would rank up there, but those would be some of the football memories I have.
Yeah, and actually my favorite memory from the Ohio State game had to be Josh Jackson's, Odell pick
the two interceptions.
Yeah,
the
but
picks.
The one in the end zone where he reaches out, brings it in, that was impressive. And I was sitting behind the south end zone, I believe, and so I had a perfect view of it right through, and that was awesome.
Josh Jackson, they have a great photo of him one-handing that interception.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that, but they frame it and mat it. They have it in the Hawk Shop. And that's the night they wore the charcoal gray uniforms, the retro fit uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to pick out 1 or 2 memories, but when I write my book, I'll have all those in there, Noah. How's that?
That'd be awesome. I'm going to read that.
I'll get you an autographed copy, okay?
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Gary. So Iowa basketball, you mentioned with Luka Garza this year, they're looking really good. And then you mentioned Kansas not doing as well this year. It's weird to see Duke and Kansas. Like, last year's North Carolina struggling. This year it's them. And then Iowa's up there at the top of the pack, and they're looking really good. How far do you see them possibly going this season, and what would be some keys to that?
Yeah, good question. 2 good questions. The bigger picture is with the COVID, nobody knows. I mean, I had Coach McCaffrey's show last night, and we were talking about Michigan's situation. I mean, everybody's stunned by that. Michigan has called everything off for 2 weeks. Every sport, every piece of athleticism in the athletic department is dormant now for the next 2 weeks. I couldn't figure that out when I heard it on the radio Sunday, and then I read about it yesterday because they found a substance of the new COVID virus, the second strain that is ravaging its way through Europe right now. Well, that's scary. But, to Fran's point last night, he goes, well, I mean, how did that happen? Did somebody in the athletic department go to Europe? I mean, were they overseas? Did they come back? I mean, his point was that somewhere there's some carelessness going on in the athletic department and it seems to be part and parcel to the whole state of Michigan. You look at Michigan State has not played a basketball game in 3 weeks. It started with our postponement. Now you've got Michigan shutting down. I mean, where is this going? Just when we think, we got the vaccine, we're moving forward, boom. And then Penn State has missed 3 or 4 games. So there's just so much unknown. But what you can do is you can control your own actions. And this is what's been so great about Iowa football and basketball, and really all the sports, is that we've not had to cancel or postpone one event from our end. And I don't want to lay blame or fault with anybody because it's the 100-year pandemic. I mean, it is what it is, and we'll get it in the rearview mirror. But it seems like just when you're ahead of the curve, you turn the corner, and then you get punched in the face again, like Michigan. So, and I bring that up because that certainly affects how far Iowa goes and how quickly they get there. Now we only play Michigan once in the regular season, but if there is a Big Ten tournament, there's a good chance we'd face them in the finals. And Juwan Howard is a great guy, does a great job. He's done a fantastic job in the short 2 years he's been there. John Beilein, one of my all-time favorite coaches, built that program over 12 years. And Michigan's the real deal. I mean, this Hunter Dickinson, the freshman center, is fabulous. Eli Brooks decided to come back, and they've really got it going. But right now, I think it's Michigan, Iowa. We'll find out about ourselves Friday night against Illinois because DeSumo is surefire number 1 draft pick, first round draft pick, like Garza. They've got a great center in Kofi Coburn. And then it drops off significantly. They're playing like 3 freshmen. So we got to have Wieskamp, and Jordan Bohannon's got to get back on his horse. We've got to get our it doesn't sound like C.J. Frederick's going to play with that leg injury. But, Keegan Murray will step in. We've got depth. That's the great thing about Iowa. And that's why, to answer your question, I think the Hawks can make a deep run in the tournament because of that depth. Because I had a coach tell me many years ago, when you hear about March Madness and 64 teams or 68 teams now, you think, oh my God, we got to go through all these teams, all these great teams to get to the championship. No, you got to beat 6. You got 6 matchups. So think about it this way, he said, this coach, and he's an outstanding Division I coach, former coach of the year. He said, you've got 6 game plans you have to prepare for. So once the pairings are set, all right, if you're a good team and you're a higher seed, you look at your first 2 pairings or your first pairing, your first game, and then who you could potentially play. And this is how he phrased it. He goes, those are 2 winnable games. Okay, so now you win those 2. Now you get to the round of 32. And then you win that game, the first game. Now you got games that you're pretty evenly matched with the next 2 opponents. Okay, so you game plan. The guys outplay the other team. You win those 2. Now you're in the Elite 8. Now you've got 2 opponents, or you got 3 opponents left. Now these teams are either better than you are, or you're as good as they are on paper. So he said that's when you got to take care of the basics. Turnovers. Fewer fouls, make your free throws, and ultimately he said the key is rebounding. If you give teams going forward in the Elite 8 second chances at putting the ball in the basket, then you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So I thought his philosophy was great. You're playing 6 teams. You don't worry about the other side of the bracket until you get to the Elite Eight. And that's the way he coached. And he had a team get to the Final Four. He had great teams every year. But for whatever reason, the year I thought they would have won the national championship, they really got, in my opinion, hosed on a couple bad calls because they're playing Duke. They're playing Duke, and Coach K is going to get the calls.
Yeah.
I mean that's just the way it is. You got to play through that. So to answer your question, I think Iowa can certainly get to the Sweet 16. I think they're they got a great chance to get to the Elite Eight. Now, how do they get there? They've been one of the better rebounding teams in the Big Ten, so you got to rebound. You got to keep the other team off the glass. We're a great free throw shooting team. We're in the mid 70% range, and that's a sign of a great free throw shooting team. Mm-hmm. And we can score. We're going to score 90 points a game, and we got Luka Garza. Now, you got to stay healthy, and we've got to play better defense.
Yes.
Fran will tell you, we stunk in that stretch last week against Indiana when they went off on a 16-2 run. And I'm not here to demean Indiana in any way. Indiana always has good players.
Yeah.
They've always got terrific athletes. And when they when we were taking bad shots, we were forcing threes. Luka was being double and triple teamed. They got a couple turnovers, went down and got some easy scores, and got confidence. And, if you'll remember, Iowa was up 9 at that point. They're up 53-44. So even though we felt we should have been up by 15, we were in good shape. Mm-hmm. And then those young horses got off on that run and went on a 16-2 run. And then, okay. And the other component there is without your home crowd, I really feel that every team misses the fans in the stands. Mm-hmm. I mean, 15,000 people at Carver would have got the Hawks going. And some coaches will tell you they miss the crowd. Some will say, "Oh, the crowd, yeah, no, that's okay. Well, you know what? We're at home, yeah, but you lose that home court advantage. I feel at least a large portion of it. So I think the Hawks can go deep because I don't think we've had a team like this since that Sweet 16 team of Tom Davis, or maybe since the 1970 team. That went undefeated in the Big Ten with John Johnson and Freddie Brown, all those great scorers. But we didn't have the size that this team has. We didn't have the overall athleticism then that this team has. I mean, Wieskamp is just a phenomenal talent.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that can play 2 or 3 positions. He can drive it to the basket. He can shoot the three. Bohannon, I don't need to tell you how valuable Bohannon is, just his leadership. CJ Frederick, we need him healthy because he gives us another great shooter. So there's 3 guys around Garza, and then you've got who am I missing here?
McCaffrey.
Connor McCaffrey. Connor's our glue guy. He's our assist man. He's our defender. He's a good rebounder, and frankly, he's been hitting some shots lately, which is great to see. And then you got 4 guys coming off the bench, Nunji and Murray and Toussaint and Patrick McCaffrey, who give you great depth, guys that can play. There isn't much of a drop-off from the starters other than they lack experience. Mm-hmm. So this team, a couple things, when you get to the tournament, the games really come fast. They're like every other day, 2 or 3 a week. I'm counting the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. So you got to have fresh bodies. You got to have good depth. Iowa has that. They've got the scorers. They've got the rebounders. They're a great free throw shooting team. The lacking component is consistency at the defensive end of the floor. Mm-hmm. Now they're better, despite what happened the other night. They're a better defensive team this year when they go to they always start out in man, and then they'll go to a 3-2 matchup or a 2-3 zone. They got to rebound out of the zone. And they've done a pretty good job of that. So I think they got the message last week that, they got a target on their back every night out now because they've been a top 10 ranked team all season long. And they got a team that has Final Four potential. But they got to stay healthy, and they got to be hungry at the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, and so I have one more question before we get into some fun ones with the Would You Rathers. So you've had a very long and legendary broadcasting career. But over that long time period, do you wish you would have done anything differently?
Um, yeah, probably. I'd have to think about that. I did 5 years of minor league baseball. This has nothing to do with the Iowa career, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would have done anything differently with Iowa, and I'll explain that in a minute. I wish I would have pursued. I think I was pretty good at baseball, play by play, because I can BS with the best of them. I mean, I can fill dead time like nobody. And in baseball, as you know, you've got, now I'm talking about radio, not TV. TV always helps you out because you have a picture. People at home
Yeah.
listening to you can see what's going on. Radio, you got to create what the ballpark's all about. You got to create a picture for the listener driving down the interstate or sitting in the backyard listening to the game. I wish I would have pursued more of a baseball play-by-play career. I did 5 years of minor league baseball, Class A and some Double A, and really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that time. And I think I was good enough to do Major League Baseball, but I would have had to commit a lot more time going through the minor league system, because typically that's how you get to the parent club, A, Double A, Triple A for a few years, and probably a 10 to 12 year process.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little bit more anxious than that. I didn't want to wait 10 or 12 years because there's so many more basketball and football teams than there are baseball teams.
Yeah.
As we know. So I'm very happy with how my career has gone. Now I've had offers to move to network positions, but that would have required New York City, L.A., Chicago. Chicago, I really wouldn't have had a problem with. There's a false nomer out there that I was offered the Chicago Bears play-by-play job. When Wayne Larrivee left and went from the Bears to Green Bay, I was working for the Bears in TV production, and they asked me if I'd like to interview for the job, and I said sure, and I did. And at the time, I was I think my third year of Iowa, and I went to. It was WBBM Radio in Chicago had the rights to the Bears. They do to this day. And I think I could have got the Bears job, but at the last minute, and they hadn't brought this up yet. The vice president for broadcast operations, or a lady, a great lady. She was really, really kind, and I think she wanted me, but she said, "We need you to give up Iowa basketball." I said, "Iowa? Why would I do that?" "Well, we need you in Chicago to do the coaches' weekly shows." And I said, "Look," I forget her first name. I said, I can be here. I'll hire a pilot to fly me in to do the Monday night show." Dick Geron was the football coach at the time. And I said, "But Wayne Larrivee did the Cubs. He did ESPN college basketball, and he did the Bears. He didn't have to give any of that up." "Well, but yeah, it's a new age, and we think we well, come to find out, they really wanted me as a full-time employee of the radio station to do afternoon drive sports in Chicago and do the Bears coaches shows. And I had told them that my days of reading a 2-minute sportscast were over with. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to be a play-by-play announcer.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to find out after I turned them, I said, why would I give up 35 Iowa basketball games? And Steve Alford had just come in. And of course, the theory was Steve was going to take this program to a level I'd never seen before. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, Steve Alford averaged 21, 22 wins a year. Mm-hmm. People forget that when they criticize him. But so I finally said, look, I'm not going to give up Iowa basketball. And she looked at me and she said, well, okay, I kind of thought that would be your answer. So let's agree to keep the door open. And I thought, okay, fine, yeah, keep the door open. Whenever they tell you, let's agree to keep the door open, that means they're moving on to somebody else, which I understand. And they did. And the guy they hired lived in Phoenix. So figure that one out. And he commuted every weekend from Phoenix, and that lasted 1 year. His name was Gary Bender. And then he said, you know what, this isn't working out. I'm done.
Yeah.
And they ultimately hired Jeff Joniak, who's the current day play-by-play announcer for the Bears on radio. And he had worked at WBBM anyway. So they just said, okay, Jeff, we can save X amount of dollars. We'll pay you additional money to do the Bears. So it ultimately it worked out to be a good move for me. But when you're the voice of the Hawkeyes, unlike most of the 300 other Division I basketball jobs or 130 Division I football jobs, they're not nearly as unique as Iowa. Because as you know, we're a farm state. Everything revolves around, for years, 100 years, it's revolved around the Hawkeye Radio Network. Whether it's Saturday afternoon when the farmers are out picking their corn in the field listening to Hawkeye football, or in the dead of winter when everybody's cooped up with 10 inches of snow on the ground, on a Wednesday night listening to Iowa, Indiana basketball. I grew up listening to Iowa radio for all my life, so I understand how passionate people are about their Hawkeye Radio Network. Plus the weekly radio coaches shows, plus the weekly TV shows, plus all the iClub outings they have in the spring and summer where I go out and MC that. You don't have that at 90% of the schools. They just don't do it. They're not bothered by it. But the Iowa fans demand that their coaches and their radio crews, they consider these people rock stars. So when I go out with Ed Podolak, who's won a Super Bowl, or when I go out and take Bobby Hansen with me, who's won an NBA World Championship with the Bulls and played with John Stockton and Karl Malone in Utah, that's a big deal to Iowa fans. And we love our Hawkeye fans, and we certainly love our Hawkeye listeners. So I don't really regret 24 years of being the voice of the Hawkeyes. As I told you at the start of this chat, if you're a kid in Iowa and you grow up in Iowa and you have you have an ounce of passion for radio, you want to be the next voice of the Hawkeyes. So no, I'm very comfortable. It's provided me a great living. I'm in my home office studio, which is bigger than most radio studios. You can see Yankee Stadium over my left shoulder, and way in the back, you can see Mickey Mantle on the wall. I'm not a big memorabilia guy. I don't hang a lot of pictures or paintings or posters. It's all buried in that closet you see behind me. But over the years, my football hero growing up was Dick Butkus, the great 51 of the Chicago Bears. And I had an artist do an original watercolor painting of Butkus that I have somewhere else in the house here. But I'm a pretty plain Jane kind of guy, and that's about all I have on my walls. Oh, I have an autographed poster of Zach Johnson when Zach won the Masters in '07. That's pretty special. And so that's about it. But my passion is the Hawkeyes. My passion is radio. And my passion is interacting with great Hawk fans like yourself and Iowa fans. And so, I'm 69 years old. And I'm not, unlike the great legends of Iowa broadcasting before me, I'm not going to hang around till I'm 80 or 85 and lose my skill set and still people will love you because you're on the air. That's not me. We've got, my wife and I have got 3 grandkids. They're 10, 8, and 2, and I want to spend more time with them anyway. And they happen to live here, close within 15, 20 miles of us, so that's great. And so, as much as I love the Hawkeyes, I'll do this a couple more years because I know there's a young guy like Noah sitting out there waiting for me to get my butt down the road and get out of the chair so they can have their shot as voice of the Hawkeyes. So, and that's fine with me. I'll still go to the games. But I'll have my little radio with me.
Yeah. And so now into the important stuff here, the would you rather questions. Would you be up for it?
Sure.
All right. So these are some fun questions I always ask. And this is the one I always ask. It tells a lot about a person. Would you rather eat Italian or Mexican food?
Oh, Italian. Without a question. Now, my stomach is at a point in my life where I can't eat anything real spicy, or I'm popping Tums all night long. But Mexican, there isn't much I like Mexican because most of it's spicy.
Yeah.
I don't like margaritas and I don't like Bloody Marys because you got to put too many sauces in. I'm kind of a beer kind of a beer guy, just a good cold glass of beer. But Italian, I mean, I love pizza.
Who doesn't? Who
Who
doesn't?
doesn't love pizza? Again, minus the spiciness. But I love barbecue chicken pizza, not real heavy barbecue sauce, certainly. But I also like pasta, and spaghetti and meatballs. And so, again, I'm pretty plain Jane when it comes to food, but I like a good steak. I'm a steak and potato guy. I mean, I grew up in Iowa. No, come
Of
on.
course, yeah.
But I would definitely go with Italian over Mexican.
So it's kind of a fantasy here. Would you rather be able to fly or be invisible?
Would I rather fly or be invisible? Well, I'm not Superman. I always love watching the old Superman episodes and how he can run and take off and fly like that. I'd rather be invisible, and here's why. Because since I'm an old radio news, TV and radio news reporter, I could walk into any high level meeting, any skyscraper in New York City, if I needed to get a scoop. I wouldn't have to call and see if I could convince the guy to do an interview with me. I could walk right through the door, sit down on the couch. Maybe if he's got a wine closet, I could get out a bottle of Cabernet and sit there and sip wine and take notes while these guys are giving me all these exclusive insights to the story that I'm looking for, and they wouldn't even know I was there. So I'd rather be invisible.
And then the last one I got here, I'm guessing it's going to be option number 2 here since you're from Iowa. Would you rather visit the mountains or the beach?
Oh, mountains.
Oh, really?
Question. Yeah. Now the beach. Don't get me wrong. I love the beach. I love Florida. I love the Gulf. I have a sister who lives in Fort Myers, by the way. They've lived down there for about 5 years. They love it. My brothers and I used to go to spring baseball when I was just a young gym rat in radio, local radio. We'd go down to Florida for 2 weeks every year, and we would see 2 or 3 baseball games a day. We'd go to 11 o'clock first pitch, 3:30 first pitch. Then we go to Lakeland for the Tigers and the Yankees. Then we go to Clearwater the next day, and we'd catch a game in Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete. Then we go down to Sarasota. I mean, I'm rambling, but we're such a baseball family. And our dad was deceased then, so we were doing it in honor of our dad. But you know what? I'm not I mean, look at this body. Do I look like a guy that'd want to go to the beach every day? But here's why I love going to the mountains. And I'm not talking about the Rocky Mountains, because I get asked often. I'm surprised you didn't ask me this, what my passion is away from broadcasting. Maybe you already know. I'm a huge history buff. I would have been a history teacher had I not majored in journalism. And excuse me, primarily military history. But I'm a fanatical Civil War buff, which is ironic given the times we're living in now with Black Lives Matters and civil rights issues. But so I love going to Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. I love going to Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. Those mountains that have a rich tradition of history, because our young guys, people your age and younger, need to understand how this country was formed. I love going to New England, to the Revolutionary War battlefield sites, looking at the Poconos, and winding down through Kentucky and Tennessee and looking at the Appalachians. Those are the mountains I'm talking about. But to me, a beach and an ocean are beautiful, but if you drive 100 miles down the beach, the ocean's going to look the same. You drive 100 miles north of where you were, the ocean's going to look the same. When you're traveling through Middle America, and we've been to, I've been to the Battle of Little Bighorn, General Custer out in Montana, Little Bighorn in Montana. Those mountains are beautiful. But you said mountains, so that's why I'm including mountains. But my passion is I've been to all the major Civil War theaters, battlefields, from Vicksburg in Mississippi to Shiloh in West Tennessee to Gettysburg. I've been to Gettysburg 4 or 5 times. You ever been to Gettysburg?
No, but I do want to go.
You need to get to Gettysburg for a variety of reasons, but it is some of the most hallowed ground There were more people killed in Gettysburg in 2 days than in any other part of the country. 50,000 casualties. Go to Antietam in Maryland, where you have those beautiful mountains in the background. People need to know where we came from, how this country was formed. Why would the North fight the South? Why did we have a Civil War? That's your assignment from me, by the way.
All right.
I won't ask you a question. I just want you to research the Civil War. I've read probably 25 books on the Civil War. None of what we're enjoying today would be possible had it not been for the Civil War and President Lincoln. So that's why I'd rather go to I like the beach, but I'd spend 2 days at the beach. I'd spend 2 months at Gettysburg, and I may still, when I retire, I may go be a tour guide at Gettysburg. My traveling buddy and I have talked about either setting up planting roots in Gettysburg or at Little Bighorn in Montana. So you may not ever hear from me again.
Well, yeah, I do enjoy history. I love World War II, World War I, and the Civil War.
Good for
That's
you.
always captivated
Good for
me.
you.
So yeah, I do want to visit Gettysburg.
Watch the military channel.
All right.
I don't know what TV service you have there, but I have DirecTV. So on channel 287 is the military channel, and they have tons of World War II video on as to how World War II developed and all the great battles of World War II, from Pearl Harbor to Midway to the European theater. So you and I'll get along just fine if you like military history. Okay.
All right. All right. Well, I'll
Okay,
take
bud.
you up on that.
Stay in touch.
Yes, sir.
It's been fun talking to you, Noah.
You too. I enjoyed it, Gary.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye. Go
Bye.
Hawks.
Go Hawks.